Welcome to There Must Be More, a Bethel, Ottawa podcast. Remember to like and subscribe on YouTube at Bethel, Ottawa, and follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify Podcasts.
Let's do this.
All right, everybody, welcome to There Must Be More podcast. We're excited to be here, and we have, Rob, a very special guest. Are you cheersing?
We are.
Okay.
It was an air cheers.
An air cheers?
Salute,
hey. We have a very special guest with us, and he's sitting over here.
Right.
We have Chris Chase.
Chris
Can we give it up
Chase.
for Chris Chase, everybody?
Woo!
Let's give it up. Let's give it
Come
up.
on now.
Yes. So, Chris, tell us here a little bit about who you are, what you do, what you love to do. Don't just give us your ministry rundown. Like, tell us who you are.
So I am a husband, married to Rebecca. We did the math this morning, going on 18 years in September. She would say that she's enjoyed 10 of those 18 years. We have two kids, Eliana, who is 14, getting ready to graduate and going to high school in September, which is nuts. And we have Liam, who is 11. And that's sort of the family unit. We also have a bunny. If anybody wants a bunny, please let me know. I will ship him to you.
No, your bunny's so cute.
Yeah, you know what?
What's the bunny's name?
The bunny's name is Fluff Palm.
Fluff Palm. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So you're
That's what I
giving this
thought.
bunny away.
Gladly.
For free?
Okay.
Gladly. Like if
So just so
anybody-
you know,
Poor
like
Fluff
when I was
Palm.
growing up, my buddy used to raise rabbits to eat. So you probably should be careful about who you give your
I
bunny
don't
to.
listen. I don't care what happens to the bunny.
Okay.
Oh, poor
Now,
justice
someone's
for
going to
Fluff
listen to
Palm.
that podcast and say that I'm anti-animals. I'm not anti-animals. I'm anti-Fluff Palm.
No,
It's specific.
Just Fluff Palm.
On
It's
Sunday,
specific.
I preached that it was okay to kick cats. So I
Listen,
mean,
and I'm not going to condone nor deny or judge. I'm just going to say if a cat's in my way, well, like anyhow. So husband, I'm a father. I've been in ministry, pastoral ministry, serving ministry, I guess you could say for 20 years now.
wow.
Long time.
That's commitment.
Currently on staff at a church called the Meeting House, which is a Be in Christ denominational church with an Anabaptist background. But I'm still Pentecostal to the core. So that's always fun to be in conversation with them, kind of go like, I don't know what you're talking about because like when I read Acts chapter 4, right? So that's I'm a family guy, I'm a work guy, and I love this sort of stuff. I love conversations. I love just being able to kind of just talk about things. We don't talk about things enough. We kind of like
That's true.
yell about stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh,
and then we ghost each other or we block each other, and as opposed to like actually having conversations and build relationship that way. So this is a real treat, and I've known Sarah since Sarah was as we would say back home a little gyada. You know, like I've known her since she was super small, super like it's like a young kid, and known her family forever. Her dad is just a giant in the faith to me, and then getting to know you, Rob, via both Zoom and Facebook Messenger.
Right.
That way, and
Zoom.
Instagram.
Absolutely.
And so this invitation came. It was like, let's get together. Let's do this thing. So it's a real privilege to be here live, and to be able to talk. And my parents are here. My mom and dad did the drive from Montreal to come hang out. They could have been anywhere in the world, and they're here with their son that lived in their house for 20 years. It's hilarious.
Love that.
It's awesome.
That is awesome. So, but
That's
you
so
can
good.
also you kind of do this stuff, right? Like you're a bit of a podcaster.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing there? Like you have some stackable stuff.
Sure.
Like,
So
we can put this in the notes, right?
Yeah. We'll put it out.
Yeah.
So I used to work at one of our denominational Bible colleges and started a podcast there for a little bit before the boom where everybody had a podcast, right? Like, no offense to this podcast and the podcast I have, let's try this out. Like before Spotify was even a thing, when people were putting them on Apple Podcasts, like Podbean and stuff, and doing your own, doing your own editing on GarageBand and things like that, and your own production, that sort of stuff. Like recording through like the microphone of the laptop, right? It was like before, like, oh, we have these Shure or whatever, these boom mics.
Let's go iMovie.
Right? And then during the pandemic, if anybody remembers, it was a pandemic for 3 years. And no, not a big deal. Not a big deal. Just really, just kind of like, there's so many jokes I can say, and I'm just like literally like going like, don't,
Filtering them out.
Don't say that. Don't say that. Peter and Sandra will listen to this after, so I want to make sure they don't say anything, right? And so, a group of friends and I, part of a group chat that I'm part of, we started a podcast called The House of Commons Show.
That was so good.
And we had a lot of fun doing that. 10 black men yelling and talking about anything and everything.
It was so good.
And we had a great time doing that, and it was great during the pandemic because we were all home. We all had the time to be able to sit and talk and edit, and there were so many things happening in the world that we could weigh in on. Yeah. And then the world opened back up, and it's really hard to kind of corral 10 alpha individuals into one Zoom call for 2 hours to talk about anything. Like even today, we're trying to like get together for like, we're gonna get together for a barbecue. It's like, okay, well, let's do that. Let's plan for 2025 because no one has time. And then out of that show, I started one on my own called Talking to Yourself.
Yep.
So did 2 seasons of that, one where I would interview friends of mine, and the process would be you get into a DeLorean, you have a chance to talk to you at any point in time in your past. What would you say, knowing what you know about your life now? Wow. And then the second season was because it was hard to get guests, it was kind of like me talking out loud, as if I was like writing things down in a journal. Yeah. This is me kind of having this sort of conversation. And so I'm thinking about the second one, the Talking Shelf one might come back this summer or in the fall and do like 10 episodes, then do 10 episode chunks here and there. But like, so podcasting is fun and less about talking and more about listening to people. Mm-hmm. So this is an arena that I'm comfortable in.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? And we have coffee, which makes it even better.
Oh, absolutely. So we have a big topic tonight.
Yeah, we do.
Like, I think it's something that is just pervasive in the world right now, and obviously is affecting. Siri has been interrupting me. I have to tell you guys.
All week long.
I have to tell you this. The other day, with my watch beside me, I literally said, "Thank you, Jesus," and Siri said, "No problem."
We can talk about idols later.
Right, yeah.
So I'm gonna. Too much.
I read the questions.
Siri's too much.
So, tonight we're talking about celebrity culture. And specifically in the church. Yeah. Because it is something that definitely exists, and it's something that we have to deal with. And like, you can almost go like, is it all bad? Is there some good there? Like, what do we really need to be doing about this? Yeah. So my first question, I guess, for you is like, what are you seeing in the church, North America, when it comes to pastoring and celebrity culture?
Well, I see a couple things. So I mentioned before, and it'll come up in the conversation. It's easier to kind of get it out now. Yeah. The church I've been at for the last 3 years, we are at the bottom barrel of the experience of dealing with celebrity culture. We had a well-known pastor within North America, and I'm not saying anything disparaging about this person. You can check your Googles, right? Who had a moral failure that became a criminal case. And this was somebody who was well-known and well-renowned, and people would quote this person more than they would quote scripture, right? Or quote a small group leader, that sort of thing like that. Again, I'm not saying anything that's at turn, I'm facts on facts. Yep. And in December of 2021, we learned that everything was not on the up and up. And ever since then, we've been kind of like dealing with the church in an identity crisis. Who are we apart from this individual? Because it's so much of our identity for the last X amount of years, even before I got there, long before that, was built on this person's extraordinarily God-given gifts. Mm-hmm. And their ability to explain Jesus and bring people along, and people's kind of getting to know it, all this sort of stuff. Now what do you do? And so what I see is sort of like we're trying to kind of figure out who we are apart from celebrity church culture, but we can't help but get into the mess of celebrity church culture, because what we end up doing is we often end up replacing that person with another person, right? So it might not happen at Bethel, but for sure we have our favorite worship leaders, we have our favorite authors, we have our favorites. Did you hear the sermon by this person? Whatever. And then that person flies too close to the sun, they crash and burn, and we replace them with somebody else. And so, we'll get into the conversation later on, but like we're no better than the culture that we critique and criticize for having idols and heroes.
That's an excellent point. And I think that's something that we don't think about at all. Yeah. Well, keep rolling with that. That's
just that sense, right? Like we have people out there, and we get mad at we spend X amount of money on concert tickets or whatever else. I mean, how dare you, that money? You can, how many churches you can plant with that, or how much mission stuff you can do, and blah, blah, blah. How many guitar pads do you have? I just need it because somebody needs to hear that one sound from this album that I really like. And how many times we do the same thing.
Yeah. Totally.
Right? And so what I see for us in a church culture is just kind of a sanitized version of what we criticize, I'll use in quotations, the world and what the world does.
Right, we're almost like just a microcosm of
we're no different. We're no different than the society that we are a part of.
Now, you think that there's anything in us that, and this is harsh, but wants to see people in high stature fall down?
I don't know if we want to see them fall down per se. Okay, no, sorry. I'll take that back. I think some people do.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you go on TikTok, some of you might be who are here live, or listening or watching this later on. You might be on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook if you have a certain age and stage in your life. That was an old person joke, and didn't land at all, though, by the way. No one laughed at that. Offended everybody. You'll see that we live in a day now where people will watch sermons of people and critique lines or parts of their messages. Like that's what they like. Yeah. I'll use two examples. Yeah. When I was doing youth ministry, so going back now 2004, 2005, there was this guy on the scene by the name of Rob Bell. And he was Marshall Bible Church, not the Seattle Marshall Bible Church, but Marshall Bible Church in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Yep. I don't know if it's Grand Rapids, but in Michigan, let's say. And he was the darling of the evangelical church, the darling of it. Yep. Every youth pastor, every young adult pastor had Numa videos lined up. These beautiful aqua green, sort of, all of us did, right? I got to do Sunday school. I don't have a lesson plan. Thanks, Rob Bell. Put this video on. But that's what we would do. Yeah. And then he wrote a book called Love Wins that hinted at the idea of universalism, that hinted at the idea that at the end, everyone ends up in heaven. And it's like that. We don't like that idea. We don't like conversation. We don't even like broaching the possibility of something and seeing how we feel about that. It's like, nope. And then boom, he crashes and burns. Now, he was fine. He ended up working with Oprah. Yeah. If you work with Oprah, you're fine.
Yeah. You're
money if you're working. You're
you got
thriving.
Money. You don't got money. You got money.
Yes, you're like, oh gosh, Oprah picked me up and now I'm on her network. Oh, my life is so
super
hard.
Soul. Yep.
Right? But like we collectively did that. We became the police, and there were men and women within the evangelical world who made it their mission to protect the gospel and to protect theology and destroy him. Mm-hmm. Again, destroying is a strong term because from a optics perspective, he was fine. Yep. And he still writes books and he still gets called to talk about things that happens. Yeah. More recently, you have a guy like Michael Todd, Transformation Church, right? Yep. Michael Todd for a while was the darling of evangelicalism.
For sure.
This it doesn't hurt. He's a young black man, a preacher of the gospel, and like in a world in a day and age where it's like we're looking for diversity, he fits the bill. Yep.
For sure.
And we're a fan of him, and we're sharing his stuff, and he's being so just unique in his presentation. Then he does a couple of things here, and like people are like, that's kind of strange, but it's fine. And a couple of things, I don't know about that. And he spits on something. He's like, well, that's weird. Right? But we allow these things, and then after a while, we then go like, no, it's going too far. Yeah. Right. And then he has this, again, I'm saying what's online. Yeah. He has an Easter presentation. Yep. Right? And it's using secular music to tell a Christian story, which people do all the time.
This is not new.
Yeah. This is not new. But somehow, listen, if you bring Beyonce into the church, it's a problem.
Yeah, it was okay when it was U2 though.
It was fine when it was U2. It's fine when it's Kings of Leon. It's fine when it's Coldplay. Do you notice the theme here? But when
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
There's
Yep.
do you notice the tone? Anyhow. But suddenly it's like, oh, well, you're inviting the devil into your worship service. And he's using his pulpit to defend himself and defend his church and things like that. Now, can we criticize? Of course we can, but like that's what we end up doing. We build these people up because we need them.
Yep.
And then they go sort of outside of what we like.
Yep.
Yeah.
And even who the we is, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's like two people in the basement just kind of like typing away at something or whatever else, but we just kind of like go like, nope, you've gone far enough. We did it to Andy Stanley.
Yeah.
We've done it. We did it to Mark Driscoll, and you can feel however you want about a guy like Mark Driscoll. We're name dropping here as if you know them.
I'm gonna tell you how I feel about Mark Driscoll.
Right,
No, I'm just kidding.
right, like, but like we did the same thing over and over and over again. The Icarus thing, where like you get too close to the sun, and then we kind of like bring it down, but then we replace them with somebody else.
For
Yeah,
sure.
right.
100% we do. The thing with Mike Todd is I feel it's different there, and I don't know if this is just me, but I feel like people are waiting for him to mess up.
Yep. 100%.
Right?
100%. I agree with that.
100. Like so I have a group chat. My friends and I, the House of Common guys, and we literally talk about everything. And one of I can't remember what Mike Todd thing happened, but one of the comments in there was like, yeah, I just hope he doesn't fall. It's like, that's kind of like, and I get that because like the bigger the platform, the bigger the fall, the bigger the fallout, the public thing.
Yep.
But like, that's sort of what we started like, oh my gosh, we're bracing. Oh, it's going to happen eventually. Let's brace for it. Let's see what happens here. And it's like, and so like, there's so many safeguards and things like that. But like this is weird thing of like, we don't allow these human beings to be human beings. We make them bigger than that. And then we get surprised when the bigger than that doesn't match anymore and they fall apart. Yeah. They were like, how did this happen? It's the mess that you made, man. Yeah. And I'm not saying the Mike Todd, like that's, or whatever else, whatever person you want to put there. But like we create these paradigms for these people to kind of like thrive in. And then we get surprised when the paradigm closes in on them. Like, well, what happened? You moved into a house with faulty wiring and faulty structures. Like so I think we wait for it. And some people, whether it's jealousy, whether it's kind of towing a line, we look forward to it. And that's the scarier part.
That's a worry for sure, especially when we're talking about the Christian world. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Like, I can't honestly say what I feel about celebrity culture in, like, I don't know how I feel 100% about mega churches, but like, I think that there's a place for all things, right? Like, I think that for some people, a mega church works and they find Jesus in that mega church and they learn to serve in that mega church. And so for me to say, like this whole thing is
like throw it all
out, like I think that's ridiculous. And same on the small side, but like, it's almost like we take this stance of if it's not the one that I like, then it's no good.
Well, and and this is not, I say this so like, I want to vomit as I say, I've worked in 2 mega churches. Because someone's gonna be like, I don't say that as a flex, just how you apply somewhere, they hire you and you work there and then you realize, oh, this is way bigger than what I thought it was gonna be, like that sort of thing, right? And once you're inside it, it's a machine. It's not all that's cracked up to be. Yeah. Right? And sometimes we're in a day and age now where like in Canada, it's hard to build a mega church. Oh, for sure. It's really, really, really is. Yeah. Right? Like there was a heyday where churches, like Bethel wasn't always as big. Bethel wasn't always in a sanctuary this size, or any of the churches in the capital city or different spaces, right? And the United States is a whole different sort of ballgame when it comes to church life and things of that nature. But you said something so wise there, Rob. Like it's kind of like, well, I'll like that one, but not that one because I don't like the preaching over there.
Oh, totally.
Right, like and so it's like maybe just run your own race. Maybe just run your own race.
Right.
And pay attention to what you're doing and your church is doing. But so the church I work at, the funny thing was like getting there and like the hubris that we would carry about ourselves as a church.
Yeah.
And then watching that hubris fall apart in the last 3 years as people kind of go like, oh, people have not liked us for a long time. But, you know, like you were the popular belle of the ball. That's why. And, you know, like, and you kind of walked around like your poop didn't stink. Sorry, Sandra. You can edit that out later. Right? Like, you kind of walked around like everything was fine.
Yeah.
And some people were like, that's cool. And other people were like, oh, I can't wait for you to fall apart. And then you go on YouTube and you realize that there's been people documenting things for a while and writers documenting things for a while, waiting for the moment to go, I told you so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not every sort of church is vital to the kingdom when the kingdom is the main objective. And but to that point, I think some churches lose that objectivity after a while, and it becomes about maintaining the size and the breadth of the church and the influence of the church under the guise of the kingdom.
Right, and the product that we're putting out.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, you know, is our last album going to sell the same as, or is this new one going to sell the same as our last one, which we won Grammy for?
Are we getting the same downloads on YouTube?
Right.
Are we getting the same views here? Are we getting the same views there? Are we getting invitations to is our team or our staff getting invitations to speak here or there and whatever else? Like all these sort of metrics that we place over, and that's the thing that creates celebrity. This idea of like, well, are you being this? Are you out here? Are you out there?
Yeah.
Are you writing? Are you... Like, I remember when everybody had a blog, right? We're all, there's like literally 5 leadership thoughts, and we all kind of like say them differently. There's nothing new under the sun.
Nope.
Right? It's really, like if you really listen to teachers and preachers, we have like 5 messages that we just kind of say over and over and over again, right? Like at the end of the series, you're like, oh, that's the point they were trying to make, right? Like, right? Like, am I disparaging what we do by any sense? But it's like, we're not that special. Like we serve purpose, but we're not that special. It's when people conflate the idea that we're special that we kind of believe our own hype.
Yes.
And then oftentimes it ends badly.
Absolutely.
100%. Oof. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
So that's really good. That's really good.
Awesome.
Going back to talking into celebrity culture, you've touched on it slightly. And so you talked about a little bit about idolatry in there. You like slipped it in. I want to go back to that because it's very clear biblically we're not to have any kind of idols. So what I see in celebrity culture is pastors are becoming the idol, right? Or the worship leaders are like, you know, it's Maverick City here and like we're gonna go and that's beautiful. And Elevation Worship, and they just had a huge concert in Toronto and so many people went and like beautiful. To me, in my opinion, it's okay, that's becoming the idol, right? Like that's, the pastor is the God. The Instagram clips that we see, you know, Mike Todd having a really amazing like object lesson, because he has some amazing ones, right?
The one with him in a boat?
Yes.
It's
so good.
That is so genius. Why didn't I think
genius.
of that?
So creative. Like, I wish I came up with that. Like, oh my gosh, right? So I think the danger and part of what perpetuates the celebrity culture is that we are making idols of these things. And so how do you think we get to the place of we're coming to church, I love serving here, I love worshiping here, this is great, this is great. Now all of a sudden, my pastor is my God. When I come to church, I crack open my Bible Sunday morning, I don't touch it again. Then I like go on Instagram and I look at this clip and I'm like, oh, like God's, you know, that's my quiet time with God was that 30-second
Oh, there
clip,
it is.
You know, how do we, when the Bible tells us we are not to have idols, how are we getting in? And I know we're fleshy and it's our human flesh and we're sinful, but I just want to hear your thoughts on that.
That was a big question.
I know, I'm sorry.
That was a good one.
So, I can't give you a chapter, but Exodus, Moses goes up to, you know, hear from Daddy God. I'm sorry.
Please,
Yeah,
please,
yeah.
please,
I'll never do that again. Yeah. Yeah, I'll never do that again. Yeah. You can beep that part.
I can't
There
with
you
the
go.
daddy God.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Bless you if you say
Father Jehovah, right?
Yeah.
And while he's up there, the people come to Aaron and they're like, well, Moses he ain't coming back. Moses ain't been gone long enough for his human musk to be out of the camp. And they're like, we need a new God now. So Aaron, who should be going like, everything's fine. The same God who took us out of Egypt is with us now. Aaron says like, okay, everybody bring all your gold and we're gonna make an idol.
Yeah.
And Moses comes down, he's like, what have you done? See what happened was like, the calf just showed up, bro. I don't even know. Yo, I told them not to do this, bro. You believe me, right? But like, it's in our nature.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's in our human nature to create things, right? How many times have we taught, you might be the only Jesus that somebody sees.
Yep.
We've taught that ourselves, right? Like you need to share, you might be the only Jesus, and that's not a bad thing to teach, right? Like you might be like the living embodiment of Christ to somebody, right? It's when we start worshiping the living embodiment of Christ, that's when it becomes a problem. Yeah. And we all love heroes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right?
True.
Like if you are coming from a broken space in your life, you walk in the back doors of Bethel Church, and Peter McIntosh is getting up and he's speaking, and he says something that in that moment speaks directly into your soul. Mm-hmm. He doesn't know you from Adam. But he says something that somehow you feel like, how many times? It's like you were speaking to me.
Yep.
Right?
Right. Yep. Totally.
Yep.
We, because I've known Peter since, like my early years of school, like going to school, not working in school, going to school, so more than 20 years of my life. He would say, it's the Holy Spirit speaking to you, the words of Jesus.
Yeah.
That don't make no sense to me. It was you.
Yep.
It was you.
Yeah.
And we just naturally sort of like,
it's the worshiping of the creation,
right?
right?
It's just naturally it's no different than our age bracket watching Michael Jordan and a younger age bracket watching LeBron James or Steph Curry.
Yeah.
And I can't, and posters on the wall and things like that. I want to be like Mike, that sort of. We do the same thing here. If you're a young kid playing guitar and you have a worship leader who's playing guitar, right? It's just 4 chords and karaoke. No offense to worship leaders, right? I'm sorry if we, legitimately, like, why go to an Elevation concert when we can have the same songs be done by worship leaders and musicians here? I'm just saying, right?
Yeah.
Spend $85. Go for it. But we want to be like that person. We want to learn from them, and then suddenly they become our hero. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of like it too.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of an ego stroke. If we're keeping it a buck, right? And so I think we just do that because in our human nature to create idols. We're not supposed to, but like we have biblical precedent to see that we naturally as humans do it all of the time. Mm-hmm. Remember in the book of Acts, like they gave Paul Greek god names, right? Like, oh my goodness, like tell me how much does it cost to get that gift that you get to be able to heal that person? I'll pay whatever I'll pay you money to be able to do what you do. Yeah. It's in our nature to create idols. It's not right. Yeah. But we want to be able to like latch on to something. And sometimes it's easier to latch on to a person than from an emotional feeling standpoint is to latch on to God.
Yeah. You can hug a person, right?
You can have that person tell you, I believe in you.
Yeah.
You're awesome.
Yeah.
How many kids that go to a youth convention event and they're waiting for the speaker at the end of the service and to get a word from the speaker. Yeah. And the speaker is just kind of like in their head going like, I just want to be able to get to Eastside Mario's with the convention red guy who's running the thing. And sure, kid, you're awesome, man. And that kid's like going home and writing it down in their journal. Right? They don't know the difference in that moment. Yeah. Right? Right? Like we have events and kids are getting the autographs from the worship leaders and things like that. And the worshipers, I'm just being kind.
Yeah.
But that kid's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Right? And then they both go to Walmart at the same time and they both buy the same whatevers, right?
Yeah.
But it's in our nature to kind of create idols, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We didn't put this in the questions, but as we're talking, it just sort of comes to me that maybe we need to put words to the damage that can do to us as followers of Christ, right? When we start putting our faith in other things, like maybe can we touch a little bit on what that could possibly do to our faith and to our growth?
Well, really, when that person leaves, and they could leave because of something nefarious, or this can be like, hey, I'm moving.
Yeah.
I'm moving on. I'm going to a different church. I'm going to a different ministry, whatever else.
Yeah.
My hero's gone.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to go see a Marvel movie anymore if there's not going to be an Iron Man, like that sort of thing. We just kind of like, we attach ourselves to a person. How many youth groups have I seen where youth pastor moves on and the youth group falls apart because it was about that person?
Yeah.
That man or woman who was leading that, like we put everything into that sort of stuff, and then it crushes us when they're no longer around.
Yeah.
And then you add to that the possibility of a failure of some nature.
Right.
And then it's like I don't know if I can come back to this church anymore because everything they said was okay, well, who are you worshiping? And how come nobody told you along the road it's not about that person? You know what I'm saying? Like, how come? Like, where was that? Where was the podcast then to tell you? Listen, people suck sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
More often than not, they are the worst.
Yep.
Right?
You down. Yep.
Know that now.
Yep.
I will disappoint you.
Yeah. Totally.
I will.
100%.
Like, I'm not saying I might. I will. I don't know when I will.
Yeah.
But I will.
Yes.
And when I do, reprimand me. Like make sure that I don't do that again. But also realize that like, just because I'm in a role, it doesn't mean that I'm going to aim to be excellent, but I can't be perfect.
Yeah.
Right.
And we end up putting perfection unintentionally on people. And then when they leave us for whatever you name the reason for, it's like a piece of us is taken.
Absolutely.
Right. And when your faith is predicated or built upon a person,
Yep.
And that domino falls, well, the whole thing falls apart.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then there's the aspect, too, of the person that you're looking up to can't possibly care for you the way that you might want. Like, if somebody's going to come in, I'm going to let you down just because I love my wife more than you.
Yeah.
And because I am devoted to my children more than you.
Yeah.
And it's just how it is because these are the people that God handed to me. So there's even aspects of like, this is nobody's fault, but just the way that life is. So if you're putting all your eggs in this basket, it's going to let you down.
It'd be amazing to count the collective ministry years among the three of us,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like how many times has somebody told us, I thought that you would do this for me, or and you're like, I
never told you I was going to do that.
I never told you I was going to do that.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I didn't know you needed that.
I didn't know you needed that.
I didn't know that's how you felt.
Yeah.
Right? Like all these sort of things that like get projected upon.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that as an excuse. We need to make sure to the best of our ability that we are available and to be able to help and serve people and that sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
But this idea of like being all things to all people is hard work.
Yeah.
Now I understand, like someone would say, Paul says, I become all things to all men that I may win some. But like he's not doing them all at the same time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you can't read that scripture and kind of go, oh, well, he's just kind of like, he's wearing every sort of like, no, like when he's here, he's this. When he's here, he's this. So when you're family, like I'm family and my phone's turned off and I'm not like, sorry, like I'm not.
Yep.
Like unless if it's an emergency, you know how to reach me. But if it's an email, like listen. And if it's on a Friday, I'm gonna get to it on Monday.
Yep.
Right?
That's right.
That's
Yep.
Because if it's an emergency, you'll call me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Feel me?
Yeah.
So it's letting people know. And I was thinking about this when I was looking at the questions over the last couple of days. This idea of reminding people that pastors and leaders, we serve a function in the church. We are not the function of the church.
Oh, it's good.
It's good.
Say that again, okay? I
think I remember. Like we serve a function in the church. We are not the function of the church.
That's good.
We are part of the puzzle. We are not the baseline. We are not the top of the pyramid, nor the bottom of the pyramid, nor the edge of the pyramid. Right. We are in the middle. We serve a function. And I think what ends up happening is people have this expectation. Oh my God, you're the man. Please don't ask me if I read my Bible this morning. Please don't ask me, because I didn't.
Yeah.
Right? So please don't expect this sort of like holiness, because here's what I did. I woke up, I went to the gym, hung out with my buddies, I went for breakfast with my wife, I packed in my bag, and I got in the car, and I ate Starburst the entire drive.
Yeah, you did. And there's proof. There is proof.
There's proof in my rental car.
The wrappers.
Wrappers upon wrappers upon wrappers of Starburst. I didn't want to stop for lunch. Sorry that I mentioned that from my parents because they were so disappointed in me, but it's what happened. But you know what I mean? This idea of like, there's this perfection. Oh my goodness, if there's any imperfection, it's like, but we conflate these.
Yeah.
Because we see clips of people on Instagram, or we see posts of them on TikTok, or we see this beautiful prose in a blog, and we're like, oh my gosh, this person's amazing. No, that's one moment that somebody curated for you to be able to catch one thing.
Yes.
You didn't see them yell at somebody in a parking lot and then hope that somebody didn't know if they went to church or not, or see them decide to cut somebody off on the highway or whatever. You didn't see the other parts where they got mad at their spouse or their friend or whatever else and then ghosted them in their own home. You didn't see the humanity parts.
Right?
Right? Like, being a pastor or a leader or a Christian does not stop you from being a human being. What it does, it says, I'm going to align my humanity with Christ and allow him to lead my life to the best of my abilities. Yeah. As opposed to kind of saying, well, I'm a leader, so I can do no wrong. And then you check someone's anyhow.
Wow. Yeah. No, that is I love that you bring out the aspect of we are not the function of the church, because the body is meant to all be at work. Like together. That is such an important factor that I'm not gonna say it's lost, and this is not,
it's forgotten.
This is not on the topic of celebrity culture or anything like that, but like there is a reality to 80% of the people, or the 20% of the people doing 80% of the work, right? And then so there's a lot of people watching and doing what's said there, like watching the pastor and believing that some of them are perfect, hearing me speak and going, wow, there's no way that guy is perfect. But
why do they give that guy a microphone?
Why do they keep giving that guy a microphone? But then, we need the body to just all come together and really function together, right? And the power of the Holy Spirit, and like Jesus is our guide, and all of that. But we do need people at work. Yeah.
So one of the things I do that I really appreciate about the Anabaptist tradition is this idea of community hermeneutic. This idea of the community working together and listening and discerning together. And truthfully, that's a Pentecostal trait. That's old school church basement prayer meeting, listening for the voice of the Spirit and responding to that. That's up my alley. That's I'm familiar with that. But this idea of we're learning this together, and we're not kind of looking to the pastor to kind of go, so what should we think?
Right.
Or say something is is this right? Right? Bible college degree, is this right? Seminary degree, is this right? And you're sitting there going, I don't know, was right. I don't know. Maybe, sure, I don't know. Let me. Exactly. Table of contents, Deuteronomy. It might be, right? But this idea of working together and listening together and learning together, right, is so much more valuable when we do that in community. And yes, do you need somebody to discern and kind of give leadership? Yes, you do. And that's the function of
you need structure.
The pastor. You need structure, that sort of stuff. So you do need a little bit of order. But just think that nothing gets, that's where the buck stops here. That's messed up. But that's what we end up doing. And we're not void of that, because everyone does that in some respect. Right? In every sort of sector of the world. We just do that under do not touch the Lord's anointed. This person is the wise person, that sort of thing. So it just gets conflated that way.
Totally. I see that in prayer. Like when people think that my prayers got some kind of like crazy power.
My favorite is when I used to work at a church in Toronto. We had a visitation pastor. This dude's a legend, but they really wanted the senior pastor to come visit because the senior pastor visited. Somehow that's when Jesus would show up. Because his prayers are somehow different than the prayers of the visitation pastor.
Right.
But if you had to ask me, I want the visitation pastor. And both of them are men of God. Love them both.
Right.
Spiritual grandparents to our kids, that sort of thing, right? But like neither of them are better than the other person. But there was this idea that if this person shows
superior.
up, I'm about to get healed when they show up at my house. The Holy Spirit's going, oh, shut up. We'll walk in, that's gonna be fantastic. That sort of idea. It's like that's not how it works.
Yeah.
We're imperfect people trying to serve a perfect God to the best of our abilities and serve and love. It's not this whole idea of like, oh, well, if Rob shows up, oh, Holy Spirit's coming. Oh, who's speaking this Sunday? This person is, okay, I'm
Can't make it.
I'll check the podcast next Sunday, but I'll listen to Joel Osteen or this person or that person in the meantime. Yeah. That might get you guys in trouble with the podcast later on, too. I don't know. Nah. He's a guest. He doesn't know any better.
I think you touched already a little bit on sort of our role as believers when it comes to the fall of our heroes. I'd love to talk a little bit about our position in social media, because you also touched on that as well. And that's where I'm seeing a lot of, I don't know, like I don't think we represent Jesus ultra well there. I mean, obviously, no sweeping statements here, right? Like to say that all of Christianity is terrible but
that's not what we're saying.
Not what we're saying. But, man, we're fighting. We're fighting with each other. Yeah. We're calling people out left, right, and center over theology. Like, so to me, Rob Bell putting out that book, whether I agree with him or not, why can't we have this conversation, right? Why does he have to be canceled? Right, for it. And there's a part of me that wonders if the church, Big C Church, had been a part of like the original cancel culture, right? Like we were canceling, you weren't a follower of Jesus, then, well, and I'm throwing this way back. Yeah. But like, what do you see as our role, and like, what are you seeing us doing on social media, for good, for bad, all of that?
Well, I'll start by saying this. I don't know if I'm the best judge of social media because of the amount of memes I share on my Instagram stories. If you follow me on Instagram, which is such a weird flex, if you follow me on Instagram, if you follow me on TikTok.
You share the funniest stuff.
I'm always laughing. Some people are like, do you have a job? I'm like, yeah, I just do them at the same time, right? But like I just share things I think are really funny because it's just like take life light, and every so often there's something serious, but I'm mindful of the amount of times where Rebecca will say, okay, you can't share that. Yeah. My wife is much smarter than I am. You think you're funny. It's not funny. Take it down. Well, I think it's hilarious. Nobody will. Take it down. Right, so I preface that with saying all that stuff. But I do think that there is a weird sort of, and it was loud, I don't want to put blame on somebody or anything, but like 2015, a certain individual decides to run for a certain office in a country south of us. Mm-hmm. Talking about Mexico, ladies and gentlemen. And first lie on the podcast. And their approach to things is very UFC antagonistic, very fighty. Mm-hmm.
It's a good word, very fighty.
Very fighty, very just kind of like confrontational. Yeah. It's very like smack you in the face and then put your hand behind your back like I didn't hit you, that sort of thing. Yeah. And then dare you to hit somebody back, like that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
No name dropping, that sort of thing. And what you saw, if you remember, were a lot of people saying like, oh, this person's saying they're not PC. They're saying what people are thinking. And then you're like, okay, but what he's saying is very hurtful and deplorable in some respects to a certain subsect of people. But
for sure.
So that means that you were thinking that the entire time, right? And I'm not saying that people weren't doing this beforehand, right? I'm not saying that at all. But like it just felt like it got louder.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially among evangelicals.
Yes.
Especially among evangelicals when it came to certain aspects of society.
Yeah.
whether it came to status of finances and then race in 2020, and now we are having massive wars about gender that are real and that are prevalent, that affect people on either side, however you feel about things, like that affect people. And what I'm seeing is sometimes we're not even thinking about who we're hurting because we're thinking about the Jesus we're helping, because somehow he needs my tweet to help his kingdom.
Totally.
Somehow, if I post this story, and listen, there are people who are affected by that. I'm not saying that. If Jesus can use donkeys and me, then he can use anything, right?
Yeah.
But I find that we fight a lot and we argue a lot.
Yeah.
And we argue, and the funniest thing for me is this, is that there are people who will argue online who would never do that if they were sitting across from somebody.
Oh,
Right.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And I'm almost the sort of person like, one of the Anabaptist tenets of the denomination is being a person of peace and being non-violent. Yep. And I'm like, I'm probably not meant for this world because I want the smoke all the time. I'll give you my address. Come through.
Yeah.
Come through. My wife will get mad at me, but come through. You want to say these things? Come through.
Yeah.
Right? That sort of thing. So I'm like, but like, there's people who would say these things online because they know that they know no one's gonna drive over to the house and kind of deal with them that way, right? And we think that we're doing this. We think that we're in a righteous war. We think that we're in a culture war, and we're trying to get things back that we feel were taken from us.
Yes.
When this world's not our home, this was never ours to begin with. We were never supposed to take ownership over this. We were supposed to be caretakers of it until Jesus said it's time for you to go to your actual home. Still a rapture believer, like that sort of thing. Like all of this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Like this isn't ours, but we feel like, and a certain subset of people feel like we've lost this. We don't have the control. Jesus is not on, he's on the throne, but he's not in the classroom. He's in the throne, but he's not in the government.
Yeah.
He's in the throne, but he's not in the movies. And we need to put him in everything. Okay, sure, but there's going to be another effect to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? And so we're fighting and we're embarrassing ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? Because, people then kind of walk in and going like, oh, this is the kind of church I want to be a part of. Right? They're just not.
Yeah.
They're just not. And so I find that, we are the original cancelers.
Yeah.
Because we have this idea of like, this is what's supposed to be, but then we just move the goalpost. We move the goalpost when it doesn't suit us anymore. Because, again, there's a certain individual who was running for an office in a certain time and blah, 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 who might, in fact, run again.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're willing to move the goalpost for that person and not for others. And that doesn't make any sense to me. No. But then at the same time, it makes all the sense in the world to me.
Yeah.
That's, yeah.
Yeah. Whee!
Right?
Awesome. Oh, man. Okay, so on the topic of cancel culture.
You guys okay out there, by the way? The 30,000 of you who are here in attendance, running on the stage trying to get autographs. I'm kidding.
You're right.
You know that TikTok sound? They go, 30,000? That's all I thought of. 30,000? If you know, you know.
I don't know what we're talking about.
No, you don't, because
I know what
old
you're
man.
What?
I always call him an old man.
He's like 2 years older than I am. Like,
right.
I just like to make fun of him.
That's still a hurtful comment to both of us.
I just don't belong on TikTok. I recognize that.
It is a time waster.
It is.
It is a time waster.
You go down a rabbit hole. I look at my phone. It's like 3:00. I'm like, oh, let me just check to that 4.
You're like,
I'm
where
like,
does the
serious?
time go?
Oh,
it's
yeah.
time.
Okay.
Oh, I'm serious.
What? This is just,
It's a time waster.
We're off the rails.
I'm
And Shan,
serious.
if you have to do some editing here, that's cool. What on earth could be that entertaining on TikTok?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Hey, okay, sorry, but this is also the best reaction we've had from the crowd so
Yeah.
far.
Have you been bored this entire time?
We roped them in. TikTok dances afterwards over cookies.
TikTok is fun.
It is fun. It's just a really fun way to
So you need to know this, and all of you need to know this too. The infinite scroll was invented to keep you stuck.
Yes. Oh, okay. Yes. Okay.
Right?
Yeah, but it's fun.
You're preaching now. Come on now.
And
some of you here are in an infinite scroll in your spiritual lives.
oh, that's good.
I'm sorry. Is that?
But it's a part of the really big problem we have with focus.
Yeah,
Just saying.
it is.
Just saying.
No, you're not lying. You're not lying. You're not lying. Sorry, but back to the question of cancel culture. Sorry about that.
Oh, yeah. I don't even know what I was going to ask now. Let me tell you.
Back on the topic of cancel culture.
Oh, yeah. Back into the
conversation
conversation of cancel culture. So we as Christians, we believe in redemption.
Ooh,
and all
we do.
this, okay? We do, right?
Good.
So this is where it gets tricky for me personally. We were name dropping before. I'm going to continue to name drop. Mark Driscoll. For me, as a woman, I have a very hard time, right? Because if you haven't listened to Mars Hill, it's a podcast, listen to it, because it kind of explores this idea. He's a mega church pastor, and he still pastors right now, currently. And he was a mega church pastor, and he planted a church, and it blew up. It got huge, like amazing. Then he started saying questionable things from the pulpit, and then he would... a lot against women and like women and their husbands. And it's just it's a whole lot, okay? And so I, as a Christian, don't believe in cancel culture. I believe in accountability, right? And so I think a lot of us have a hard time because we think maybe we're being cancel-y when we're trying to hold people accountable.
Right?
Are you laughing because I said cancel-y?
I like cancel-y, yeah.
Cancel-y.
Anything with an E on the end.
And so we see people like Mark Driscoll, like Carl Lentz, right? That was a big one in Hillsong.
And they're two opposite extremes.
Yes, two opposite extremes, exactly. Where there seemed to be zero accountability, right?
Did you say Ravi Zacharias in there?
That's another one I have a hard time with. And like, he's dead, he can't defend himself or anything, but there was an investigation and there was proof. So
he left a trail.
Boy, oh boy. So my hard time as a Christian, as a Jesus follower, is I do believe in redemption. I have a hard time with the Mark Driscolls. I have a hard time with the Carl Lentz. And now Carl Lentz is coming back into ministry. He's been out of spotlight, everything for years, working on himself. And like, yes, to that, 100%. Restoration, we believe in that. And I even believe in like, you can, come back to your job if you healed properly, and that's fine. But then I see this like coming back in a mega church setting, and I'm like, you're playing with fire again. You know what I mean? Anyways, I'm ranting. But as a Christian, how do we not participate in cancel culture, but participate in proper accountability? And what can we say for people who like me who are struggling with are you here for the right reasons? Are you not? Maybe I'm being judgmental, and the Bible tells me I shouldn't be judgmental, so maybe that's the answer. Do you know what I'm saying? I do. Yeah. It's a lot. It's a big question.
A part of me thinks that cancel culture is a myth. Because I don't think anybody is really truly canceled. They just kind of move into different subsects of society.
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. So, I'll use Mark Driscoll and Carl Lentz as examples. So Mark Driscoll has this massive church. I have books of his. I remember buying them when I was first in ministry because they were like, he was a different voice. It was at that point the Reform movement was kind of moving into the forefront of theological discourse. They came out of the emergent movement. The emergent movement was much more art filled and contemplative and things like that. And then the Reformers were like, we need to get back to the Bible and the ESV and all these sort of things, and right, and so they kind of come in, from a Reformed Baptist sort of tradition, that sort of, and like in some respects, like that's what happens in church. The pendulum sort of swings, right? Sure. You went from the Hillsong one to the emergent one to the Reformed one, like it just kind of happens, right? And so he creates this church, and for a while, none of us know this stuff because we're at the dawn of social media still. So we don't know a lot of the things that we know now. We just kind of hear the output. People are getting saved and they're planting churches and blah, blah, blah. They're creating these networks. right? And then you get the podcast and you realize, you know, like, oh, like he was saying that. Oh, he was saying that. Oh, he was saying that. And you're listening to it from a different lens. So me listening to him teach these hour-and-a-half long sermons sometimes, real talk, right? I can barely pay attention for 20 minutes, right? Like, and listening to them now as a husband, as a father of a son and a daughter. So I'm not just saying because I'm a dad, I have a daughter, I listen to it differently. Having kids going like, oh, he was saying these things, and people were hurt. But then at the same time, there were families who felt restored by it and helped by it. And you're just kind of like, how do you make these things work at the same time, right? Is he canceled? No, he has a church in Scottsdale, Arizona. He still has podcasts. People are listening to him. He's in the public discourse, maybe not to the same degree, but he still is, that sort of thing. Carl Lentz, he has a documentary coming out with FX talking about the Hillsong phenomenon and the fallout of that. Like, no one's really truly canceled. You could still find Ravi Zacharias' books out and about, and you could still kind of have an understanding of theology from people who've learned from him and has kind of remixed his stuff. So even though he's, you know, no longer alive, he's not canceled because people. So I find like the idea is, on one hand, I find cancel culture myth-like because no one, people kind of yell about being canceled. I'm being canceled. And the fact that they have a platform to say I'm being canceled is a very definition of it. You're not canceled.
Yeah, wow.
Right.
There you go.
Like, you're able to tell people that you're being canceled on a platform, and people go like, yeah, you're canceled, man.
Yeah.
Right? And more often than not, it's man.
That's a good perspective.
Right?
That is. I never thought of that.
No,
right?
me either.
And so when it comes in terms of the redemption piece, I think that's the harder one. Again, serving at a church now that's kind of walking through this, I know people who, from the jump, have been like, it's fine, nothing wrong, take a couple months, sit on the bench, come back, preach. And there are other people who are like, if I see that person at a pulpit ever, I'm done with I'm burning the place down. And I understand both hearts. Because you want to see somebody redeemed, and nobody should be held back to their past, and you know, and if they're repentant and if they want to serve Jesus. And other people are like, no, well, you know, if you mess up once, you don't miss a chance to blow, like all this sort of stuff, right? And you know, back in the day, for us before social media, we really wouldn't even know these things. You kind of hear the murmurings of this person did something wrong, and blah, blah, blah. And you get shipped to another place, and they, you know, POC, you go to Ohio for a little bit, and you come back, and you get yourself fixed up, and then you come back over, right? If you're a POC pastor, that joke kind of lands for you in a real way, right? And you come back, and you're kind of like, right? But now we know all the things. We know where everyone goes. We know all this sort of stuff, because we make these Facebook posts about our family and how bad we feel and blah, 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 and all this sort of stuff like that. I think we as individuals have the ability to say, I'm not going to download this person's stuff. It's the person who says, I'm not going to listen to R. Kelly anymore. I'm not going to listen to
Chris Brown.
Anymore, or whatever. I'm not going to do that, even though, like, how many songs were written by that you listen to.
Even though some of those songs are so catchy.
Right? You're like, all these things they're all so connected, right? But you have the ability to love a person and still be like, I'm gonna check you over here, right? I think so when you look at Mark Driscoll, I think you have the right to be able to say, like, as a child of God, as a person who is loved by Christ, who Christ died for and rose again for and has love for, I love you in Jesus. But in terms of your output,
I'm gonna.
I just can't rock with you, right? Like, especially if, like, when asked about it, you double down. Like, I just can't. Right? Like, I think that that's a healthy thing. And I actually use a Mark Driscoll illustration that I've used a number of times. There's closed-handed things, there's open-handed things. There's closed-handed things to our faith that we can't let go of. And then there's the open-handed things where, like, you know, for some, speaking in tongues is a closed-handed thing. If you don't, then you're not. And for other people, it's kind of like other denominations, it's kind of like, hey, listen, if you have that gift, it's fantastic. But if not, like, it doesn't make or break. And it's each of us kind of deciding, like, what's the closed-handed thing. So for me now, as I've learned and grown, gender, in terms of women in ministry and learning and, spousal support and this sort of mutual 100, not like, I am husband, blah, blah, blah. Like, that matters to me because I want, should my daughter marry somebody that she's treated with respect? And if my son marries somebody that he's treated with respect and they treat the spouse with respect and not kind of feel the sense of ownership or lack of ownership because of their gender. So those things matter to me.
Yeah.
So when I hear, a teaching or a clip off of an Instagram thing that I'm kind of like, I'm just like, all right, bet, cool. Keep on scrolling, right? Because I also know too, like my comment in the comment section isn't going to help anybody. No. They're not going to see it. They don't care. Yeah. And it's only going to invite people kind of be like, well, you're just probably one of those liberal Christians who also, eat granola.
What's
you're
her name?
See that a granola girl.
See, granola girl.
And that's what you call a callback. You call a callback, right? So I think that, and this is the tough part too, is that redemption doesn't always mean returning.
Yes.
And that's hard.
Yep.
Redemption for a person doesn't always mean returning to a position
or the exact
what was,
position before.
Right? Like, it doesn't always mean that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether that's right or wrong. I'm just saying the statement. It doesn't always mean that this means like, hey, well, like you took your, like Matt Chandler goes away for a little bit, comes back, and he's like, okay, well, I'm still pastoring here. Sure, if that works out in Dallas, but that doesn't work everywhere. It doesn't work with every leader. It doesn't work with every scenario. And every scenario is different. Every type of failure is different. Every road back is different. But I think it's important to we focus on the redemption of somebody first. Yep. And that person, not we focus on their redemption. That person focuses on their redemption.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like that person does. Like I can't focus. So if it's you, I'm not speaking over your life, but if it's you, like I'm not going like, what's Sarah doing? Did she really do it?
Yeah. Did she go to therapy?
Did she go to therapy? Yeah. Like all the things? No, like
Did she repent?
you know what steps you're taking. Like I gotta either support you in it or be like, I bet I love you, but like it's gonna take me a minute.
I love you from over here.
Right? Like it's gonna take me a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Trust is a easy thing a hard thing to earn, an easy thing to lose, and a harder thing to gain back.
Yeah.
So.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, that's really true.
It's really true.
Absolutely true.
It's really good.
You said so much good stuff in that.
Oh, I've said so much good stuff because I talk a lot. So don't. Right?
No, there was so. And you
really
honestly brought out so many thoughts in my head. And like when we're talking about redemption, I find one of the hardest things about it is that we don't really want it, but we want justice. And our idea of justice is really tricky, right? Because our idea of justice is payment, right?
Penance,
and absolutely, right? But like, if we're talking about the biggest issues in life right now, we're talking about racial issues, we're talking about gender issues, we're talking about economical position issues and hierarchies and all of these things. So the hardest part of it for me is that if we're talking about redemption, we're talking about ending racism and gender inequality and violence, we're going to have to be okay with deplorables changing their mind and being redeemed.
Yeah.
That is hard for us.
It's hard. Yep.
Because we want payment.
And like defining a deplorable. To some person, I'm a deplorable.
Right.
To another person, that person's a deplorable.
Right.
All
Totally.
of these sort of things. And we, in church rule, we have our hierarchy of what's really, really, really bad.
Oh, totally we do.
Right?
Yeah.
We have our goalposts where we're kind of like, well, and then we have did they do this with whom? Done.
Yeah.
Out. You're done. Your holiness card is revoked, that sort of thing. And so working with one another, realizing like, I'll say something I said earlier, we all suck.
Yeah.
None of us are great and holy, and like we're all just working at it to the best of our ability, and we're stumbling in the dark. So I went to the washroom. I just around the corner right there, and the lights weren't on. And I walk into the, and I'm like, so I'm doing a thing where I think there's like a sensor, and I'm like literally like in the dark, like waving my hands, right? And I'm like, there's no, I'm feeling on,
like,
feeling on the wall, and I'm hitting the dryer, and it's a horror movie. There's air coming out of a dryer. I'm in the dark. This is where I die, in a bathroom of a church, like that sort of thing. And I go outside and I find this light switch. But that's what life is often like. We're stumbling in the dark, trying to find this light switch. We're trying to kind of like make sense of it all.
Yeah.
And then we're judging somebody else for doing the exact same thing we're doing with their limited amount of information, their limited amount of experience. And we are, as Jesus said, we are looking at someone's speck and we're ignoring our own plank.
Yep.
And it's if we recognize that we are all redeemed deplorables, you know, and maybe your sin of sorts isn't as predominant or as well known as somebody else's. You know, maybe your fall isn't public.
Yeah.
You know, maybe your fall is in your fridge, or your fall is in your mind, or your fall is in your bank account, right?
Yeah.
Your fall was not with another person or persons or whatever else. It's all internal stuff. Listen, like we all have something that, like, if somebody was to check up on our lives during the pandemic, we all be like, oh, but don't check that one.
Yeah.
We all have that. We all have those things.
Yeah.
So if we recognize that with one another, right, and recognize our function, going back, like we're not the main thing, we're a function. We all work in this thing, in this community, harmony together. I think we're better. The problem is, like, that's just not how we think. Like we're having a logical, friendly conversation.
Yeah.
When we want justice, we don't care about logic at all.
Yeah.
It's emotion.
Right?
Emotion.
No action movie would be fun if there was logic involved. Right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, we could fight to the death, or we can have a conversation over coffee. Nobody wants that movie. Nobody wants that television show.
Oh, there it is, right there. Nobody wants
that
movie.
We want the fight, and we want to watch the fight. We want to see that.
Yeah.
So it's like, until we're willing to do, not us in terms of like we have an argument, but like until we're willing to sit down and kind of be like, you know what, I disagree. Okay, let's come back next week and try this again. Until we do that, man, like this is, things get worse before they get better.
Yep.
And I don't know if we're on the trajectory of better yet, or if we're on the trajectory of worse before it gets better.
Oof.
Yeah.
That's scary. That's scary.
Yeah.
Petrifying.
Yeah. So my wonderful producer wife wandered over and gave me the like.
Editing is gonna be fun, Shan. It's gonna be fun for you.
I guess we've been a little blah 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 tonight.
That's this guy.
But no,
this
this has been so good. But what I would like to do, or do you have anything else you want to say, Sarah?
Nope.
Okay, then I want
I
to.
have lots of things, but no.
I know, right? Like we could just. I mean, we're gonna go out.
That's the Patreon that you have to pay for.
Yeah.
We're going out for coffee or food after, so
Yeah.
we're gonna keep this conversation rolling. So, but just with leaving this with you, man, like, is there any last thing you would like to say about what we're talking about? Like, this actually turned into a little bit different than I think we wanted to. I think that's good. I love that what we're talking about and this redemption arc, and I think it's super important because that is who we are. We are called to be people who want to see others transformed.
Yeah.
Right? I want Mark Driscoll to win. Like, I want his life to become something that God wants to use and mold, and I want it to be good for humanity. Right? Even as difficult as those things are. But so I love this conversation. What is something you want to leave us with around this? Since it has turned into what it's turned into, what would you like to leave us with?
I think really, really, really quickly on the top of my head, which ultimately means it's going to be long and arduous. The idea, like, we create the culture we want. We create it.
Yeah.
So we're responsible as a community to create a sort of culture where people either feel like they're rock stars or everyone's a rock star. We create that culture. We choose that sort of culture. We choose that in our promotion. We choose that in our pulpiteering. We choose that in our leadership. We choose that in what we put across to people. We choose that together, and we allow that together. I'm saying that from the experience of what kind of walk through. We allow those sort of things. And so we got to keep, to use a word that Sarah used earlier, we got to keep one another accountable, right? Like the one thing I love about the group chat I'm in is that like if one of us gets an invitation to go speak somewhere, there's like 9 guys who are going to kind of go, oh yeah, well you have a big head though. Oh yeah, by the way, your beard's dumb. Right? Like we're we're so, and like it's your brothers. It's not like just people like, if somebody came at me at random said that, like, yo, we want smoke? What's happening right now? Yeah. But we're so quick to remind one another, you're a human being.
Yeah.
You're a human being, right? Like props for you, that's congratulations for you. Also, you're a human being. Just cool your jets. Yeah. That sort of thing. And for us as leaders, as pastors, to remind ourselves that we serve a function. Right? And if we ever feel like we are getting too big for our britches, we need to have someone in our lives to check ourselves. Yeah. To check us, to kind of go like, hey, listen, like, you're still a human. Remember that? Remember the time that you, and not to kind of live back on our past, but to remind ourselves of what we've been redeemed through. Yes. Mm-hmm. Right? So that we're not thinking of ourselves too great, that we're not thinking that we're too big to fail. Mm-hmm. Right? And then we're watching, not that we're going and we're watching the Mike Todds and the, side note, it's all men that we've mentioned.
I would just like to point that out.
It's just to point that out, like it's all male leaders that we've, I'm just kind of just, right? Mm-hmm. But like when we see leaders of any gender or race or whatever else, that we're reminded that they didn't start that way.
That's right.
They didn't start too big. They were all just interns somewhere else too, and these things happened and they grew and whatever else. Mm. And Andy Stanley, North Point was on Time Magazine a number of years ago. And so they had this big sort of, he had just written the book Deep and Wide, and they have a conversation about him and his father, Charles, just passed away recently. Mm. And he didn't want to have his picture taken in the interviews. Right. And they asked him, like, why was a big deal? And I'm paraphrasing here. He's like, listen, we're the church right now, but that's going to change. And then there's going to be another church. So don't document me. Talk to my leaders. Talk to this sort of stuff like that. Because one day we're not going to be the church everyone's listening to. Yeah. It's going to be somebody else. So reminding ourselves that, like, yeah, you might be the thing now. Mm. There's always a younger, faster, cooler model that's coming around the corner. Yeah. Right? So don't think of yourself too great, because that's when you've already got God. Mm. That's my...
Yeah, that's good.
That's good.
It's really good. Yeah.
All right, Sarah. Right? Oh, woo.
Yes.
So, Chris, thank you so much,
Thank you.
Thanks for having me, guys.
We appreciate it.
So I'm just going to get back in my car, drive back to Ottawa, Ontario right now. It's been fantastic. 4 hours back in the car.
We actually have Chris for the men's conference tomorrow morning as well. Yeah. But we don't ever do it this way. Do we have to say anything to close this up?
Make sure you like and subscribe.
Yes. Right? No, but actually, that's what you usually say.
We have to
but actually.
5-star review on Spotify.
Yeah.
Can you do 5 stars?
We say
I
comment.
want 6.
No, I don't know if you can do stars on the...
On Spotify and on Apple. You can.
Sure.
Yeah.
And also, if you're listening to this back, and we want to hear your comments too, and what your hot takes are. Remember to be kind in the comment section. Right? Like this, or else we had this whole conversation for absolutely nothing. Yeah. Okay?
Yeah.
So be kind in the comments. But we want to hear your comments on what we're talking about, and maybe there's things that you are thinking of while you're listening back to this. Mm-hmm. We want to hear from you. We want to have these conversations. That's why we're here. We're not here just to blow smoke up our, So.
Nostrils?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So.
Rob's like, let me cut this quick.
Yeah. No, I just, you know what? Be hopeful, guys, because the God we serve is always in control, right? Yeah. And he's got a lot of good leaders that are out there. He's got a lot of humble leaders that are out there working for him. Mm-hmm. And just pray for the leaders, because men, women, doesn't matter who the leaders are, we all are susceptible to make mistakes. And make some big ones. Yeah. So we need the prayer.
Yep.
All right.
Love ya.
Love ya. I love you more than she does.
Thank you for listening to There Must Be More podcast, a production of Bethel, Ottawa. You can catch us on YouTube, where we would love it if you liked and subscribed. You can also catch us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.